Camera's in the way. Move it. doesn't stay open. Well, the most important question, has the face become hard? The clear answer is yes. Actually, I got a bit of a nasty prediction, and that there is a chance that this anvil could break. Now, why could it break? Well, first of all, my forge welding sucks. I'm not good at forge welding. During the making of this process, I actually went with a different method. Like I said, instead of forge welding on blocks, which are easier to hammer on, I actually went with tapers. My preparation here also was not the best. And I was really pushing the limits on how cold I could forge weld on these components in order to prevent excessive scaling. If that bites me in the behind later on, we'll find out. But a little fact about this anvil is particularly the square horn is not forge welded on completely. During the heat treatment and during the making, I could see color differences that the top has welded because that conducted heat very well, but the bottom is rather loose. It doesn't conduct heat as well, meaning there is no weld, because if there were a weld, it would conduct. Same with the bottom of the round horn. This one is much better. There's only a very small percentage that didn't fully take that I could see. But with this square horn, now I think about 50% has not welded. So what we're going to find out with the beating that I'm going to do on this is see if it survives. On the note of anvils like this, I do see a very similar characteristic that I see on the full-size anvils. A lot of them, and you know, that's where I am really nerdy, and if I go to a blacksmith shop or to demonstrations, you will find me looking at anvils at very strange angles. It's because I'm looking for those forge welds, and usually you can tell if it has fully welded or not, because if they're not welded, you will find a seam and some sort of overlap. So what we're truly going to find out is how strong are these forge welds? How much can it take? Because only this bit here on the top, you know, not like a very thin sliver, but you know, like half or you know, like half or something like that is what holds this together. And we have the face. Let's not forget that the face, it doesn't only provide a role of, you know, providing a continuous surface, but that also holds these two parts together. Though the face is heat treated and we're out of focus. Let's bring it back in focus. Come on, go back. I made it a little bit tougher than what I did in the other anvils, but this is going to be a good indicator and test how strong are these welds. How weak does the weld have to be before it really gives? Using this ratio. That's what I want to find out. Of course, hot forging on it. I'm not going to do any cold forging on it, really trying to beat on this. You know, it would be really weak if this would already break it. Fortunately, it doesn't. That would be really funny though, if it did. But what we're going to find out is, can it take the beating? If it does break on me, I will have a nice miniature scale example of what that weld will look like. And we will be able to see how much far around welds or does not weld. What is the shape of that weld? Something that otherwise is very difficult to observe. Let's take some rebar to it and see what it does. Here we got ourselves some nice rebar. Oh, just discoloration. Whew. Oh, it's coming loose.
All right, that should prove enough. Then we're going to do some big beating. All right, the square horn is the weakest of the two. If one is going to break, it's likely going to be this one. Well, you know, just to be sure. Well, look at that. You know, this is not a real soft wood. Probably don't want to drop that one. This is not the softest wood there is there. And that made quite a depression, so there was quite a load on that horn, and there was also a load on the feet. And if I look at it, I don't see anything of a weld seam that has started opening up. Same with the feet. I don't, you know, these are the welds, and this is a very typical thing to see in these forged anvils, and I don't see anything open up, which is good. And what I find surprising is now it seems to ring a bit more. It didn't ring as much as it did now. It does have a bit of a ring, but not as much as the others. Like for example this one. Or these two. This is the London pattern, skinny version, a bit of a Trenton hay button type of proportion almost. Made in 2019, so this one's got a little bit of age to it. This was the previous anvil, church window variant with a French layout. This one's got a high pitch ring. This one sounds like what you hear on a hammer if you listen to a hammerhead. Very compact. But this one should ring a bit louder. Well, I'm a little bit surprised because I know that forge welding can actually have quite a bit of strength in it, and we already know that from swords. If the forge welds are good, or at least good enough, you can get quite a strong tool. But this is a very different demonstration, where I think, I mean, if you look at the picture, I don't think more than 50% of this has been forge welded. Though it doesn't sound too bad. Which makes me feel a whole lot better, even though I know that this is not 100% weld. If you look at the construction of an anvil, we know that it's not going to be too problematic, because looking at the weld that we got here, if there's going to be a pivoting point, the pivot is going to be about halfway, is where the pivoting point is going to be, and it's about halfway up that it seems to have forge welded well, and everything below didn't do very well. So this bit is going to be under compression. If we push here, it's going to push on the bottom here, because that's the direction it wants to go. If that weld failed on top of here, that would have been problematic. If it held here, it would have been pulled apart. But here, it's, you know, it's under tension. Here it's under compression. Actually, if of all places you would want that weld to fail or not be good enough, you would want it to be at the bottom where it's under compression. It pushes the surfaces together rather than pull them apart. Of course, it's a weak spot still, but you know, of the situation that it is in, it's not the worst. And I mean, you've seen that I didn't go easy on it. I mean, the evidence is in this. I don't know if it's actually hardwood, but it's not soft. You don't get that depression from lightly hammering. So this guy has really proven itself, and it brings up another question about anvil construction that you may wonder as well. Say we take a look at a forge welded anvil like this. This is an old Zeudo and Halbach hand-forged anvil made out of multiple components that also have been forge welded together, and it's got a tool steel face. It is not uncommon to see anvils that have the horns or the heel broken off. And when I speak of broken off, I don't mean in this area at the very end. That can have a very different reason. I mean actually on the forge welds. It's not uncommon to see that, but it does make you think. If I got, this is not ideal, I got about 50%, maybe even less, of a forge weld in that horn, and it could take a beating of a hammer this size, a hammer that is heavier than the anvil itself. This hammer is about 3.5 pounds, so that's about 1 pound heavier than the anvil itself. You know, it makes me wonder, how bad of a forge weld does the weld of an anvil have to be before it actually genuinely breaks? I mean, I know that forge welds can be strong, but I think that if I had taken a bet, I would have bet that this anvil was going to break. So I would have lost. Miraculously in this one, number 3, the special one, 3 times the charm, it didn't break. For me, this is a big learning opportunity about anvil construction, about what it can and cannot do. And this really has made me rethink, like, okay, how strong are forge welds and how much does it take for an anvil to break one of the heels and one of the horns? How weak did that forge weld have to be? As nerve-wracking as this was, I'm very happy that I actually did, and that I actually know now how strong this weld is, even though it's not 100%. But I know now, on the next one, I'm going to be more careful with the weld preparation, and it's going to be better. I certainly enjoyed forging on this anvil, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.